Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, my name is Tara Dunaway, and I am an early childhood teacher at Barfield Early Childhood. And we have an amazing presenter today. We have Dr. Whitney, and she's going to present on immune boosters and dealing with the crazy season that we're in right now, and ways to just strengthen that immune system and keep everybody healthy. So go ahead, Miss Whitney.
Thank you. Thanks, Tara. I've loved, working with you and your family all these years. And I think you said it so well. Like, let's just take any label as far as sickness out of it, and let's just call it cold and flu. Let's just call it strengthening our immune system. Because the great thing is everything that I'll share tonight really works across any illness, and maybe it's more chronic like allergies, asthma, and chronic ear infections, or it's more of a acute or new situation like the common cold, the flu, and COVID and strains of COVID or whatnot. So all of this applies to really coming from the inside out, and how can we strengthen and boost our immune systems, speaking to as far as young kiddos, because what we may take as adults and the way we may dose that is completely different than kids. And I think as parents, we often think, well, what's safe, right? Like we may take certain herbs and vitamins, but we're wondering, is that safe for my 3-year-old, my 4-year-old, my 10-year-old? So I hope tonight sheds a light on, okay, this is possible. And really, it's pretty simple overall. There's some tried and true vitamins, minerals, and one particular herb that really can help kids and strengthen their immune system. So I've got a lot to go through. I'll talk a little bit about chiropractic care tonight, because there is physical medicine. And then, of course, there is the chemical side or the nutritional side. So we'll talk about that and dive right into it. What I can tell you is also I'm a mom of 4. So I'm telling you, I'm practicing all of this. And just a cold went through our house even a couple of weeks ago, and I'm pulling out of my cupboard and my counters and a drawer full of vitamins that I have everything that I'm telling you tonight. So I'm going to go to the first slide, which actually talks about where our immune system really, how it works and where it's stored. So immune system facts. Here's some fun ones. Your immune system responds, meaning if you come in contact to anybody with a germ, or like we were told, if we play in the dirt as kids, we're going to be exposed to germs, right? And that's actually a good thing, because your immune system responds, and it has this checks and balance system in it. And the symptoms that we experience when we're sick are actually our immune system responding. So sometimes it's a good thing. The mucus, the snot, it's actually entrapping and engulfing viruses and bacteria to try to get it out of our body. Now, when it goes overboard and it turns into chronic ear infections, allergies, asthma, or we're going beyond, 5-7 days. Now we know, our immune system really it's not using its checks and balances. Maybe it needs some support. I like to support it from the beginning, just because we live in such a stressful, busy life. Our kids are busy, we're busy. So in my opinion, and the way I've practiced all of this that I'll teach you tonight is I use it, right off the bat. I see signs and symptoms. I see people who run down in the house. I see one cold has a kid and I've got 2 others. Guess what? They're going to get some immune system support too. The immune system has direct links to the nervous system. The immune system really doesn't know how to respond unless it's stimulated. So it's stimulated inside our body by our gut and our nervous system. I'll talk about the nervous system later. So 80% of your immune cells that are responding to all the crazy things that are out there right now, as far as the strains and the colds and the flus, it's in your gut. It's in your kid's gut. And that takes a while to form. That takes a while to get healthy. So let's talk about what could interfere with that. Because I think if you know what interferes with it, then you can either start helping to build a healthy gut with your child, or know what to avoid when it's occurring. So let's go to this one. The gut is gold, and what interferes with this? I'm going to go to the next slide. So what can interfere with this? 2 simple things is sugar, a ton of sugar. And think of what we just came off of: Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, right? I mean, it just contains a ton of sugar, a ton of treats, a ton of family traditions. I'm not saying it's bad, but just, man, it's season after season. And then we hit cold and flu and everything else that's out there. Sugar can really harm the gut and the immune system. So can antibiotics. And I'm not telling you not to take an antibiotic or not to give a prescription if you're given that, but we've got to think it kills all the good bugs and the bad bugs. So we've got to somehow replenish that. And we've got to be aware, if our child has been on multiple rounds of antibiotics, it's going to start interfering with the beneficial bacteria and therefore the immune system coming from the gut. So I'm going to try to keep all of this very, very simple, but there is hope. So I'm going to go into probiotics. This, 10 years ago when I was practicing, I would say 20% of people really knew what a good probiotic was, and that's changing. I can ask patients now who are on an antibiotic, adults or kids, oh, do you have a good probiotic? And I would say 75% of the time I get an answer, yes. And they're on a quality good probiotic that they've ever found or gotten through our office. So probiotics, if you don't know the skinny on that, those are the good bacteria, and there are all kinds. There are ways to make good probiotics, ways to store them on shelves or in refrigerators. There's different strains. That would be a whole, honestly, like our course just going into probiotics. But if I could give you some tips, especially for your kids, we're looking at a count of 5 to 10 billion. And that's what they receive daily, especially in an acute situation, or they're taking antibiotics. You can take a probiotic with your antibiotic, and you want to after. Or if you're just rebuilding, maybe you're doing different strains or different types of probiotics that you're rotating every few months to try to rebuild. People often ask, does yogurt count? Well, if you look at the numbers on the screen, yogurt is 1 to 2 million. So think of how many containers of yogurt your child would have to eat to get to that 5 to 10 billion per day. And in some cases, especially if you see a functional medicine doctor, someone who really knows this, they may have you on even more than that, or your child. So I'm just giving you kind of the basics. Sugar in moderation. That's one thing you could do. If you know, again, a cold or flu or a sickness or illness is going through the house, or your child your child and they're starting to look run down, sugar in moderation. Actually, a teaspoon of sugar plummets, I'm just going to use simple words, kind of plummets the immune system, that checks and balance system, for up to 4 hours. So if it's going around and your child's having that, no, they're susceptible in that 4-hour window after up to a teaspoon of sugar. Now, what's that translate into, a candy bar, a Coke, or this or that? It's just all sugar, right? It's a lot. So the more whole, fresh food you can do, that's why we've always done soups, right? Soups in the winter, soups when we're feeling under the weather, with vegetables and fresh foods and fresh fruits. So
Dr.
those.
Dr. Whit, can I say one thing that is so interesting to me is when our kids are sick, for the most part, we're excluding that dairy too, because they're congested and they have mucus.
Yes.
So we're even taking even more of that away from them, probably when they're needing it more, so what are we going to replenish with, if we're removing those things to help with congestion and all of that mucus buildup, then kind of like what's left,
Right. And that when that's left, and that actually what you say relates to the next one, which I'll get into. And that's where, it's just the more fresh fruits you can cut up. Again, the more soups, even if you're taking the vegetables and pureeing them and then putting them in, if your child isn't eating whole fruits and vegetables, chicken broth, bone broth, good proteins. I mean, those are the types of things. Carbohydrates aren't a bad thing, especially if they're matched with fiber and a protein. So those are the types of things we got to try to replace. And what you said, Tara, relates to, yes, some kids are very sensitive to the dairies and can make them congested even more. And that's where, if you're seeing that pattern, if you're wondering, there is more advanced testing with children and adults. It's called food sensitivity testing. So if you have any questions, reach out on email to me about that one. And Tara, maybe you could include my email in this, because I didn't include it in that first slide. And so let's move on, because I think there's so much. But Tara, if you have a question as we're going along, please let me know. So let's get right into supplements then, because I think some of you are probably wondering, okay, well, the sickness is coming on, or what do I do? What can my child have? Now, most of these, and I'll tell you, are in forms. The ones I'm going to recommend are either in liquid form or very, very small chewable form. And that really, actually, the fish oils, that's the only one. I mean, it's the size of my pinky nail and it's chewable. The rest can all be in liquid form. Vitamin C typically is in like a chewable tab. So these are things that I've used, tried and true, to help support the immune system. Now, let me give you a tip here. The immune system, just like the sugar plummets the immune system for 4 hours, well, just the opposite, checks and balance, a good supplement, and the ones I'm recommending here can actually enhance or help the immune system in an upward trend in a good way for up to 4 hours. So I always try to tell parents, and do it myself, is dose every 4 hours when you're in an acute situation or the symptoms are coming on, right? The first one, colloidal silver. Silver works as, that's why it's been used in surgical rooms for, decades and decades and decades, is silver is an antimicrobial. It can be used, it can break down the walls of viruses, bacteria, fungi. So for kiddos, about a half dropper full, 1 to 2 times per day, or up to every 4 to 6 hours. I love that one because it just has it's tiny little metally taste, but otherwise just tastes like water. So that's an easy one that kids will usually take down. The second one, and for those of you who are sciencey, I've got a little study that backs this up, but elderberry and echinacea. Those are the plant-based one, the herbal-based ones that really are tried and true, best for the immune system and best for kids. They're just so awesome. And now, I mean, we carry an awesome syrup through our office called Immumax, and I reference all the different supplements later, but you can get that now in a gummy. You can get it in syrups. It's amazing. Again, this didn't exist 10 years ago. Fresh Time does a great job of carrying kid-friendly elderberries and echinaceas. Immumax is our combination of vitamin C, elderberry, and echinacea in syrup form. So I just give you that in case you're looking that up on the website. Vitamin C, different dosage than adults. As adults, we can go up to sometimes 2,000 milligrams or more. And now you can see the difference for the kids, right? 300 to 500 milligrams every 4 to 5 hours. Again, the adult chewables are usually pretty large. And so in a kid form, they're going to be a lot smaller. Emergency, I don't know if any of you have ever used emergency packets. I feel like my older kids do those, but it still kind of has a pungent flavor. So you'll have to try that one out and see if your kids like it. Fish oils. Fish oils are really just something good to stay on. Majority of the time, fish oils are anti-inflammatory. So if you've heard that word, if it's buzzing around, we think of inflammation a lot as older adults, aches and pains, things like that. But inflammation can hit all of us, including kids, especially when we're having that immune system inflammatory response. A fish oil is great to stay on, especially throughout the winter. And you'll see the kids' dosages here, 500 to 1,000 milligrams, less than adults. And that can be done daily. I'll go back to the others: colloidal silver, elderberry, echinacea, Immumax. Those are more used in the acute symptom, like the symptoms are coming on, you use it, and then you use it until the cold is done. Then you can put those back in your drawer, back in your cupboard, and save those. Those are not something you have to be on daily. The vitamin C, the fish oils, and the vitamin D3, which I listed below, those you could, your child could be on daily as more of a maintenance. The vitamin D3, I apologize, I don't have the IUs in front of me. The IUs, meaning adults, that varies, and that usually adults have blood work. But for kids, the kid-friendly version that I have is a half dropper full per day. And I believe that's 250 to 500 IUs, but every supplement is a little different. So I apologize. You can email me for that exact one, but as long as it's formulated for kids, not in a tab, then that will be liquid and it will have the directions right on the bottle.
So,
Tara?
Dr. Witt, I have two questions for you. The vitamin D3, is this the same as the vitamin D? I think it's D3. When I had the boys, our pediatrician recommended in the very beginning, was that vitamin D3? Is that the same thing? Is that typical?
Excuse me.
Like,
Yes,
okay.
most likely. Yes, almost
Okay.
all physicians, whether you be traditional or more functional medicine, holistic, almost all are recommending D3 now.
Good to know. And then the
Yeah.
silver, is that like similar to like I use a lot of Norwex, and Norwex has that silver in it, so it's
Yes.
the same type of. Okay, I
Yes.
was just
Yep.
curious.
Yes, and it can be yes, you can have it on your claws, and you can also have it in an oral suspension or a liquid version. Mhm. All right, I'm going to go on to this next slide. And give me just a moment here. I'm going to put this up for just a moment. Again, I just left this in the presentation. This was a great study actually done over in Israel, and it did show the effects. And this was with vitamin C, propolis, and echinacea. And this was the name brand you see in the middle here. This is how it was done, respectively, for 12 weeks, and had such a great result as far as the results in decreasing sickness. So I left that up there in case you just need to reference or know what that was or where that came from. And then I did list the results. That was, up to a 50, 59, and 68% reduction in different categories, including acute ear infections, a URI, which is urinary tract infections, number of sick days. So it's amazing when I think this just points out when we support the immune system, we can reduce sick days, we can reduce sicknesses. And I referenced actually one of my kiddos in the last episode or the last presentation, but Taylor, she just went back to school yesterday. She had more of the common cold symptoms for 2 days. So I used all of these supplements and had her back to school with minimal stuffy nose in 2 days. So what you do with these supplements, especially when you use them right and use off the bat, you usually reduce the number of sick days. And that's the benefit to a lot of this, and just getting everybody well faster and supporting the immune system. All right. So where do you start? I think I may have even had this presentation on the last one. I like to say, some of you that may be watching this later or listening to this may be like an old hat. You may know a lot of this, or for some of you, this may be all new. So you can start with the foods and snacks you buy in the home. It's a new year, right? So if you're watching this in a new year, it might be time to just clean things up, look for healthy ingredients, reduce the sugar a little bit, start talking to your friends, start talking to your group, start talking to your healthcare providers. I'm amazed between chiropractors and medical doctors and nurse practitioners. It's changing. It used to be 90% didn't know any of this, and 10% of practitioners, honestly, like myself, knew a lot about this. Now it's like a 50-50 in all fields. So it's so cool. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Books, further research. Like I said, start with your snacks and drinks. If you're overwhelmed with the amount of sugar or maybe the amount of things that are affecting your child's immune system, dairy, gluten, all these things, just start with snacks and drinks and then work your way out, and then educate your kids and educate your family. I mean, I tell the kids, here's what you're taking. Here's why we're coming off the ice cream for this next few weeks. Here's why we're doing this and we're doing that. I just tell them. And do they sometimes roll the eyes? Absolutely. But I always tell them why. And I think that at some point, now I'm seeing with my oldest, it's starting to sink in. So just let them know the why, guys. Just do it. So I did give you a link to, if you're confused or can't get to Fresh Time, I did give you a link to quality supplements. So these are all the things that I referenced, who they're by, exactly how you search them, everything from the fish oils to the D3. And there's actually a link there you can copy and paste. You're welcome to, but like I said, in our local area, Fresh Time and O'Fallon Nutrition are two other awesome resources. And you can always come in our office and say hi and look on our shelves too. So I want to go in, I'm going to skip a few slides down, and I'm going to speak more than I am skip around slides. I'm just going to put one particular slide up and just talk a little bit about the physical component, because this does relate to questions about especially chronic ear infections and in some cases allergy and asthma. So I am going to switch screens real quick, and I'm going to go down to this picture right here. I think it's my favorite picture because it's kind of why I became a chiropractor. I was actually very sick as a child. I had strep throat at least 2 or 3 times every winter from the age of like 5 all the way up to 12. I mean, so I had so many antibiotics, and there was no other way but traditional care, traditional prescriptions. So when I was about 13, I read about this thing called chiropractic, and it talked about how the nervous system, which controls the immune system, is connected through your spine, out of your spine, through your body. And when your spine's out of alignment, it affects how those nerves function. So it can affect the nerves to the head, neck, and sinuses, the inner ears, the immune system, the blood flow to the hands, the bladder, like we talked about in an entire presentation. So to me, I'm like, great, I could help health problems through adjusting the spine. I could help the nerves. I could help the body be healthier. So I signed on and got my first adjustment in chiropractic school. So I was such a believer. So anyway, how this relates, let's kind of talk about the immune system first. There was an amazing study done with AIDS patients, and this was back in the 80s. And they took AIDS patients, they took a test group and a control group, and they got chiropractic care, particularly to the upper neck, the very, very upper neck. This has direct connections, or the deepest connections, into the immune system. So meaning when you're stressed, or your child falls or goes out of alignment in their neck or head for whatever reason, I have many reasons listed in this presentation and ways for you to look for them, is that can directly affect the immune system, meaning your immune system just can't have that checks and balance system as well. So they took these AIDS patients. The amazing thing is, the AIDS patients who received chiropractic care, actual chiropractic care, had a 70% increase in their T cells and their B cells. They had amazing results on their blood work. And the chiropractic control group, who knew no different, who basically just got a touch of the neck and not a real adjustment, had no change at all. So that was a pretty profound way for us to see, wow, chiropractic care in the upper neck does affect the immune system. And so that's where you'll see the C1, the C2, the C3. That's the most common area. I have parents that come into my office and they're like, oh, we just can't do another round of antibiotics, or the tubal surgeries are next, putting the tubes in. We just want to try something. We kind of just looked at our last ditch effort, and on the internet came up chiropractic, and they come and see me. So I always educate them and tell them how chiropractic care works. But it essentially is to help to stimulate the immune system and drain the lymphatics. Have you ever felt like those nodules in your neck when you're sick, and you feel those like little pea-sized nodules, or you felt them in your kids, or the back of the neck, or right here? That's just all the lymphatics getting backed up and congested. So whether it's ear problems, sinus problems, chronic pressure, chronic runny noses, sometimes the immune system is just not working right, and the lymphatic system is all backed up. And gentle physical care to the upper neck can help things just kind of regulate, balance out, and then drain properly. So that's how physical medicine and chiropractic care works. For those of you who your kiddos maybe haven't had chiropractic care, it's very gentle. Tara can attest to that. She's seen her boys get adjusted many times. Usually the kids love it, and it's different than adults get care, of course.
That's what I was going to say. I am a huge proponent. Both my boys started when they were 4 days old, and came to see you, and they've seen multiple different doctors in the office, and they look forward to it. They absolutely love. They know, like, okay, we're going to go to the chiropractor to get adjusted. I mean, this is like the language that they use, and it's incredible to hear. Like I literally can hear the adjustment, because I have 2 boys. I mean, they're rough and tumble boys, and they play like boys. And just to hear that, and it just makes me feel so good that I'm able to do that for them. And like my youngest, he's had 1 ear infection his entire life, and neither one of my boys have ever had strep, ever. They've been surrounded by it, and yet they've never gotten strep. So it is cool to hear some of this information and be like, wow, I mean, that could have a lot to do with it, you know?
It can. And, and I love supplements. Don't get me wrong. They're easy. It's fun. You can go to the store, you can buy them. It's instant gratification and it's instant help. It's amazing. And I recommend it in my practice and for my own kids. But sometimes we forget about the profound effect of the physical care to our spine and nervous system. And it's a pharmacy too. If you can stimulate the pharmacy within through your nerves and your spine, and on top of that, enhance it with a good quality supplement, it's amazing. And that's what I have to say, Tara. It's, the families I see, and say a mom, her name's Abigail, actually, she's had kiddos that didn't get chiropractic care. And then now the two youngest are getting chiropractic care. Same thing. She actually commented on the ear infection. She's like, my other kids had ear infections and these two don't. When she asked me, could it be chiropractic care? I said, well, it's a factor. It's it's kind of like a test study. It's the only thing that's really changed for your older kids versus your young kids getting chiropractic care. So it's quite amazing how physical medicine like chiropractic can really get the body working right. Yes. So, and I think that's what I'd have to conclude tonight is really, and that's what holistic care is. It's really looking at the whole picture. It's what modalities can we use together to help that individual or an acute situation. And the last thing I might finish maybe with is allergies and asthma. I would say that's especially the chronic, when it's getting worse, it's all year round, that can be tricky. And that usually a base of chiropractic care, really exploring the food sensitivities are, I would say, the two main staples in starting to heal that, because it takes time and it does take some effort to make sure you're getting all of the right things. A good probiotic can also help, but again, all takes time to rebuild. So no case is the same in that, but usually those are tried and true. Some of the first things, if you're looking for something maybe different or natural, that's the first things to start with.
I've noticed with Gus is my youngest, and he just, poor buddy, he just drew the short straw. So he's got, they both have allergies, but allergies, he's definitely a candidate for asthma. And actually his allergist is not sure why we haven't crossed over into that asthma realm yet. So I'm so thankful that we haven't, and chiropractic care might be a big part of that.
Yes.
Because we haven't made that transition yet. And for myself, when I was younger, I had already started on an inhaler. So we have all of those things, but luckily we haven't had to use them. But I will say, whenever as a teacher, when those busy times of year come up and I miss their appointment or things like that, I will notice that they struggle more, and they're on quite a few allergy, like their protocols, kind of crazy with all of their allergy medicine. So I will definitely be looking into some of these things as well. But I do notice if we miss an appointment or things like that, he does struggle. He struggles.
And you're just, and it's helping. It may not be curing it 100%. Like sometimes chiropractic care, and I don't want to say it's a cure, but it can literally fix the situation, like almost 100%. And sometimes what you see is more what you're describing, that chiropractic care is, again, just boosting that natural pharmacy or that natural function of his lung fields and his immune system enough to say, okay, I'm not going to let this go overboard. Like that's what his body's doing. So yes, it can absolutely work that way too, to just at least maintain a certain level of health, even if there's genetic tendencies or other things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for presenting. Obviously, I adore your office, and we've been coming for years. So, but I'll make sure to include your email. If anybody has any more questions, you can totally email Dr. Whitney. Staff in the office, the entire staff is incredible and very, very educated. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. And yes, thank you so much, Tara.
Awesome. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and hope to hear from you. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.